All right, welcome to North Georgia Advocate Podcast 18. I'm here with Viral, and today we got Susan Aycock Smith, who's running for the Hall County Board of Education at large seat, which means it's a county-wide vote, and no matter what district you're in, you get to vote for the at-large seat. You're not limited to who you can vote for. So, Susan, give us a little bit of background and what got you wanting to run for the Board of Education, and just kind of go through that real quickly.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the time that you're spending this morning with me. I grew up here in South Hall and lived here most of my life, except for a couple of years when I was at college. But I am a graduate of Johnson High School, and I attended Gainesville Junior College. And then I went on to the University of Georgia and to Clemson University. So I got my master's in mathematics and returned here in 1990 to teach at Gainesville College. I taught math classes from 1990 until the December of 2003, actually. And then in January of 2004, I became the director of financial aid at Gainesville College. That continued on until I was put into a position when we consolidated to become University of North Georgia, and I became the associate director for operation and technology. So it was still the financial aid office, but I was in charge of putting together doing the computer programming to get the financial aid to the students. So that was my job from that point forward, plus running the office here in Gainesville, since the main office was then in Dahlonega. So I retired in January of 2023. At that time, I started gardening and doing the usual retirement stuff. And then I started looking at my property taxes. And I realized that 2/3 of my property taxes were going to the Hall County School District. That was a bit surprising. I had never really dug into it that much. But I was going, okay, what are they doing with our money? And I attended my first board meeting of the Hall County School Board in July, I think it was July 14th of 2024. And I did speak at that meeting because they were adopting a budget for the upcoming year. And the biggest thing that stood out to me on that particular budget was the amount of money that was being paid to the superintendent. At the time, it was $302,000 a year. I was shocked at the amount, and I mentioned it. It actually, I did a little study then and discovered that the amount of money that the superintendent had made from I think it was 2015 until that year had increased. It was, I can't remember now, it was either 59 or 69%, because it was in the hundred thousands, like 150,000. It had gone all the way up to almost to the 300,000. I spoke about that. I thought that was a little bit much. I said, I cannot observe the superintendent working, because that's not a place I can be as part of the public. So I can't evaluate, is he worth it or not? And so I said, well, all I can do is evaluate how the students are doing. He's ultimately responsible for what the students are doing. And then I got into the literacy rates, and I started realizing that our literacy rates were pretty low. It's probably, it was right in the area of being at or above grade average in the 40% range, 30 to 40%. So it was, to me, it was extremely low. And but that's true across the state. So when you go to the board meetings, you see, oh, we're doing this little bit much better than the state. Well, that's not a comparison I want to make. I want to make a comparison of past to present and say, we've got to improve here. We don't need to compare ourselves to other people. We need to look at school districts who are doing excellent work and compare ourselves to them and say, okay, we want to get that far. We want to go there. And that's when I really started attending all the meetings and trying to figure out what was being done. Over the last 22 months, I've attended 40 school board meetings, and they have 22 per year. So I think I've missed 2. I know I've missed one. I think I've missed two. They are very nice about allowing me to stay for their board training. They do internal board training. They don't go out to get board training. They do their own board training, which is very interesting. They use their own data. I'm not sure how much training that really is, other than it's sort of like a book report of saying, this is what we're doing. This is how we do this. This is what we're doing with facilities. This is what we do with training. I'm not so sure that's the best approach. However, they do send that in every year to the Georgia School Board Association, and they get an exemplary mark for doing above and beyond in their training. So to be determined for how well that turns out. So as I continue going through this, I was try to make comments as I needed. You're given 3 minutes once a month to make comments, a public comment, and they have a little public comment section. And so I've probably done that maybe 10 or 11 times over the last 22 months. So I don't do it every month. I just do it when I feel like there's something to be addressed. And sometimes I'll address the same things. So an example of that would be when I talked about you're doing a live stream for this board meeting. It's at 5 p.m. on Monday, which I think is a horrible time for a board meeting for parents to be able to attend. It was a live stream, and it did not, they did not save it, the recording. And so if you weren't watching it live at 5 p.m. on a Monday, you never got to see it if you couldn't get there or couldn't watch it at that time. So I went over I don't know how many times I said, please archive these videos. We need those videos, because we started having members of the public record them. And I said, listen, you have people recording these meetings now. You don't own them because somebody else is recording them. And finally, they decided, yes, that's going to be a thing. So in August of this past year, so in 2025, they did start the archives, and you can find it on their website. So you can go back and see the board meetings as you go forward. Now they will record the board meeting. They do not record the board training. That's not on there, but it's the board meeting. So if you wanted to see board training, you have to actually come in person. Right. So that was one thing that we got done, which was nice. Another thing was there was a property over in the city of Gainesville behind Gainesville Mill, which was on Stallworth Street. And the reason I found that property, which was dilapidated and just sitting there, I went through that fall of 24 and made a list, looked through every single property owned by the Hall County School District. And it's not as easy as you think, because some of these are old names, like Sardis has an unusual name for theirs, and Lula Elementary does. So you couldn't just look up Hall County School District. Sometimes it was under that, sometimes it was under the board, it was various things. I was able to find, I think it was 69. And then I went to the tax commissioner's office and asked them to run a list, and they found 69. But I found 3 they didn't have, and they found 3 I didn't have. So together we've got about 72 properties. So it took some time, but I did a spreadsheet, a Google Doc, where it lists the properties, it lists the acreage for each one, the name of the owner, which you'll see it's very different, along with whether or not there's a school on it or some facility on it. So as I went through that list and I produced the list, and I think I have it attached to an article for North Georgia Advocate about that Stallworth property. I think it's either on that one or it's on the warehouse, but there is a link to it. So Chris, hopefully you can find that and kind of put it out there. But when we did that, and I was looking through the website for something, I came upon the central warehouse. And the central warehouse was on Chestnut Street. And I had already poured through all the properties, and I realized that they didn't own a property on Chestnut Street. I mean, that was just obvious. So I looked at it and I wrote it down, and I started digging into it, and I realized that it was owned by another company. So this is a private company that rents out space. So the Hall County School District Central Warehouse is located on Chestnut Street, which is a building right behind where the interactive neighborhood for kids used to be, if you know that area.
Right.
Back there. I asked them if I could tour it, and they were very nice and allowed me to tour that facility. I went in there one day and I started looking around. So there were some books, not a whole lot, because everything's moved away from books now. There were pallets of gallons of hand sanitizer from 2020 stored in there. There were trailers. There were two trailers. There was a trailer for like a food service trailer, where you flip up the top.
Right.
And there was a trailer, an emergency trailer, which had a couple of folding chairs and some walkie-talkies in it. And I'm like, what is this for? And they said, well, if we have an emergency at a school, this is going to be our command center that we're going to take over there. And I'm thinking, I think I would call the police instead. I think I would depend on the Hall County Sheriff's Office or whatever to do any kind of command center. But
Right.
they have that. And it's stored inside. They have a box and boxes and boxes of paper that have been ordered by the various schools. And they said that they store it there for the schools because the schools don't have enough room for storage. They also use this as their shipping and receiving. So anything that a school orders, if it's a large quantity, I would say, is going to be brought there. Then it will be delivered to the school. So each school has a little place, like they had these wooden racks that they had built for each school. And if they place anything on it, that goes to that school. And according to what the manager told me, they have 4 vehicles that go around the county every day. Don't quote me for sure. I think it was every day. And they, drive to the 4 corners of the county, delivering delivering whatever's been shipped in there. Plus, they're picking up any kind of correspondent that has to go to the central office. They're also, I believe, going to the Riverbend area to that, what was the school? I think it's called the Riverbend Center now, where they have the nutrition place stored. And so they store non-perishables there. And I think they pick up things from there to take to the school. So it's a massive process. There are schedules on there. It shows you when the bus is or when the van is going to be at each of these locations. So it's a lot. But when I went there, those vans were not there. They were out on the road. But they did tell me that they lock those vans inside that building at night, which tells me this is not necessarily the safest place to be having your central warehouse. I could be wrong. That's just an assumption, because they're not storing the vehicles outside. They're putting them inside this building. So the building is large enough to store 4 vans. Okay. So it's a very large area. They do have a forklift in there to handle pallets and things like that. And I know there are other things in there. It's been I think it's been 1.5 years at least since I've been. It's been a long time since I saw the facility. They could not give me a list of what's there. That's why they said, why don't you just come see it? And so I still don't have, what is stored there. Okay.
Susan, so, let me interrupt you real quick. As far as you're saying the county school system leases a warehouse just to store stuff.
And shipping and receiving.
So it's like essentially like a central distribution center, kind of like a Walmart would have essentially for all of their stores, right?
Right.
So, but you're saying they don't own this property or this warehouse?
They do not.
Since we were talking about this earlier, how many other properties does the county school system own that they're not using? And then I also want to just because this has kind of been a theme in Hall County, not just with the Board of Education, but who owns that property? Did you guys ever look into that? Who owns that warehouse?
Yes.
Could you elaborate on who owns that house?
You can look it up. I think it's 910 Chestnut Street, but it is owned by Adams Transport and Storage, I believe is the proper name for it.
Okay.
I have not looked into the owner of that, but that's what the name of that property is. It's about 6 acres. It's interesting because they are in the city limits of Gainesville. They pay taxes to the county and mainly to Gainesville, and they pay Gainesville city school taxes. So because we're leasing, we're indirectly paying Gainesville City school taxes.
Mhm.
Okay. So the other thing, you had another question. Oh, other properties that aren't used. Okay. So you've got 72 properties, and the vast majority, I'd say 90% do have schools or practice fields or something on them. I would say there are 10 or so properties that actually are vacant. Okay.
Okay.
So when you look at the warehouse, they're currently paying $79,000 a year to rent that facility, which is around a little over $1,500 a week.
Mhm.
I mean, that is, to me, a lot.
That's a lot of rent. Yeah, absolutely.
And their thought is, they don't have to do any upkeep there. They don't have to, worry about any problems. It's security. It's taken care of by the company. Okay, but you have other options. And that's what I keep telling them. You have other options. You just closed McEver Elementary.
You have free options. That's
Free
the
options.
big things. You have free options where
Tax exempt.
you could take that 80,000 and do all the servicing and just hire and keep your guys working that or might just be sitting around. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So a couple of options would be at McEver, you have a gym, redo the floor, make it so that a lift could go in there and
Mhm.
not mess up, redo the floor. You've got plenty of vertical space for storage. There is a gym there. It's also the location of one of their HVAC maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already there and it's already fenced in. So store your vehicles there. So that's one option. Another option is Riverbend, the Riverbend location, the Riverbend Center, because their nutrition is extra supplies are stored there. They didn't want to use the gym there because it's down a few steps. So you could not deliver things in and out, shipping and receiving type things. I said, okay, fine. You have a playground back there that's on a flat surface. Take the playground equipment off and build a building. I mean, you have places. And I'm going to post a video of when the last 2 times I've talked about this. I'll put it on my my Facebook page and my website, which is susanforhall.com and Susan for Hall on Facebook. But you'll get a response from the superintendent on the first video. So I think it's interesting. You should listen to the response because it was a little surprising. So I don't know if anybody's seen it yet, but it was interesting. I mean,
I've seen it a while back, but I can't quite remember. I've seen and
he indicated that he was saving the county money by renting.
oh yeah, I remember that now. And see, and Vero could get into more of this. The cost they could have a metal building paid for in 5 years if they just built a metal warehouse just to store stuff in.
Yeah. There are other options, is what I've been trying to say.
Yeah.
And I asked them to look at it on this budget. I asked them back in March. I've asked them again in April. I doubt they're going to do it. I have asked them because the superintendent's response was, we've looked at getting something equivalent and it will cost over $2 million. My thought is it doesn't have to be equivalent. It just doesn't. You don't have to have it so a truck can back straight into the floor,
What's the cost to build a metal building? You've been into that lately and priced all that.
I mean, if you're building brand new, just with the cost of construction and inflation and everything kind of factored in, I would say 2 million or more. But again, like Susan said, we have so many other buildings that are other options, that are free options, that are already built. Utilize them.
Right.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel just because you have the money to do it. If you truly want to save the taxpayer money, then you have to look at what you already have and use the resources you already have and potentially cut back at unnecessary expenses.
And why wouldn't you store Walker Mountain and North Hall stuff closer to Walker Mountain and North Hall at a vacant property? They've got them. They do
have a bus facility up there to help with the location where they change oil and do things like
right.
repairs. So they have done that up there at Walker Mountain.
Right.
So
don't they own the old firehouse next to Walker Mountain Elementary?
I believe.
I mean, I'm just saying worst case, they could find properties and regionalize why would you want to go from Gainesville all the way to East Hall, then all the way to North Hall? Then, there's, like y'all said, there's many other options.
Yeah.
Right. I could see a little bit of just logistics of having a team at one central location, maybe, instead of having to have multiple staff members at different locations. I could see that potentially. So I understand the benefits of having a central location to receive everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is kind of the way why I'm leaning toward the River Bend location.
Yeah,
it's right off Limestone 365. I mean, it's just right.
The way the River Bend property, I went there, sloped down. They've already got the elevated buildings and everything in the back of that school where they could, the forklifts and the trucks could just back right up. And I mean, I seen the other day where they're past their food inspection. Why are they cooking food in there for?
I'm not sure.
Because I checked the food inspection to see what restaurants not to go to.
Yeah.
And River Bend, it said River Bend Center 100 on the food inspector.
Right.
On the health inspector. And I'm like, what are they doing using the kitchen for? I thought that was just for storage.
Not sure. So I started on one thing and I jumped. Let me go back to Stalwart Street. That was the property that was not doing, that there was nothing there. Hall County owned it. Hall County School District owned it. I think it was less than an acre, but it had an old building on it, and it had another building that had been used at some point by Linear Tech, and then it was boarded up. Homeless were living in the other building. It was a disaster. It was on the list. Hall County School District owned it. I actually found it. I rode over there, took photos, and I was really surprised at it. I didn't realize the Hall County School District owned it. Somehow it was given to them by Milliken when they kind of disbanded there at the Gainesville Mill. So, and probably before Gainesville expanded into the area, probably.
That's the old Gainesville Mill High School. Yeah, the school.
Yes, it was behind there. So I told Tyler Crawford about it, and he went over there and looked, and he brought it up at the one of the meetings. And I think the district really had forgotten about it, and so they have since sold it for $600,000. So that is now off of the list. So if you go back to that Google Doc, that particular item on Starworth where I probably got question marks, that has been sold. So that one's gone. That's no longer in the property. So I just wanted to go back and touch on that one right quick. So what else? Another thing that's interesting that people might really want to know about right now. Down in Flowery Branch, there is a project on Sasser Road, which, if you don't know, where the fire station number 5 is on Atlanta Highway, and then Martin Road goes back there. Martin Elementary is right behind that fire station.
Right.
If you go down a little further, there's a road called Sasser, and Flowery Branch is currently trying to annex in that particular property. It is on the back side of Martin Elementary. And according to what Corey Anderson has been able to uncover, there's an easement from that Sasser property through the Hall County School District property to get to Atlanta Highway. And it would go straight through the nature trail at the school. And the people at the school, the teachers, the staff at the school were not aware of that. And I'm not sure if many are yet. But that particular meeting is coming up Thursday at 6 o'clock in Flowery Branch. So if anybody's interested in that one, that needs to be. So that's what's the date going to be on Thursday? Since somebody might watch this podcast.
7th.
The 7th. Okay, so it's on May 7th. So that's something to be aware of if you catch this quickly. That's coming up, and that's another thing. We don't know how that easement happened. I haven't looked at the Hall County School District side of that. Do they even know it? Do they know if there's an easement across there? I don't know.
Right.
So anyway, that's another odd thing that's happening. Let's see. Do you have any other questions right now before I jump on?
Well, just not until we get in. I got a couple about the meetings themselves and how they're conducted and things, but
Okay.
because we talked about it with other people. It's the same way with the Board of Commissioners. There's no transparency. All the decisions are made behind closed doors, and all they are is just motions and votes.
Right.
And the public knows nothing. They don't know. Like with the Board of Commissioners last week, you had 2 votes for the Parks and Leisure Service. One was 100,000 higher than the other, and they took it.
Right.
We don't know why. Obviously, if you're $100,000 low, the low bid probably left something out of the project. You just can't be that low, probably. Or it could be, are they greasing palms and just giving it to the same people? We don't know that. You need more transparency and more debate in the public. And the way it looks now is nobody's willing to question Schofield.
Right.
And
so,
I don't know if it's because he's intimidating them or they just have all the details worked out before they get to the meeting, and there's no reason. I mean, why? We need to know if they're using our tax money. We need to know what's going on.
Right. So, in sitting in those meetings over the last couple of years, it's been very interesting to me because it's not run the way a typical board is run. I was the president of the Georgia Association of Financial Aid Administrators back in 2014-15. And over about a 7, 8, 9 year period, I served on the executive board for that particular group. Now, that group is a nonprofit group that helps financial aid staff members to understand all of the regulations, get the training they need, and things like that. So that organization helped me understand how Robert's Rules of Order work and how a board should function. The different thing about this board to me is that, yes, they have a chair, but they don't follow Robert's Rules of Order. I've never seen a policy manual or anything like that that tells me this is how the board is supposed to run. I've not found that. I have not really dug a whole lot into that, but it doesn't feel like the board is running the school district. Now, when you have a school board, they are responsible for 3 things. They're responsible for overseeing the budget. They are responsible for setting policies. And they were responsible for the administration in that it's run effectively, directly responsible for the hiring of the superintendent, indirectly over the umbrella called administration. So those are their 3.
Did she cut out?
Nah, she just froze up a minute, I think.
Uh-oh.
Each time, and it is produced by Assembly, which is from the Georgia Association for School Boards, and that's what they use. It's already laid out for them. Many times the superintendent begins to take over and say, next is so and so, going through the agenda, which the chair should be doing. We've mentioned that at the meetings, and he has done more in that capacity, but they're so used to the other way that it's typically the superintendent who says, this is next, and calls on the people themselves and then interjects his comment. The board in general simply agrees. They will rarely ask questions, and if the questions are not very deep, I'll say, they often will agree with what's being said and how wonderful it is and how wonderful it's going to be for the students. Great. But for instance, in the beginning of April, there was a meeting. I download these things on my tablet. I download the agenda on my tablet, usually on Sunday, But this time I did it at 3:30 on Monday. I was running behind. I did it on 3:30. When I got there at 5 o'clock, the agenda had already changed.
That's against the law, right?
I don't know. I have not found the law that says how early it has to be there. But if I were on a board, I would want to have everything the week before so I can review it.
Right.
At least the Friday before, if not the whole week before. So things are added to this agenda late, in my opinion. So when the thing that was added was a transportation presentation. And I was like, okay, what's this? So the head of the transportation office is retiring, Clay Hobbs. He is being replaced by the former, I think it's North Hall Middle School principal, Billy Wells. That's another question, is what's his experience to cause him to be head of transportation? I don't know. So when they got up there, Billy did the presentation for transportation. So what they're going to do is they're currently testing putting tablets on buses. And the tablets will be, they're testing it at Martin right now with 5th graders. So just imagine a small little iPad or something. It's on the bus. It's hooked to the dash. All right. So the driver of the bus has their iPad. They'll probably have to have it inside their house to charge or whatever and bring it out. They're going to check in. I'm at work. They're going to use it to and they would do all these check boxes on it. That's what they've been doing. So they're going to go around and they're going to check it. System in it. So the GPS will allow it to be just the route. So it's nice for a substitute to have the route already on this tablet. So that's all cool. It can be audio or it can be visual or it can be both, either way, however you want to do it. So it's going to sit on it's going to be attached to the dash. All that was fine. I saw no issues with it. The thing that I had questions about that the board did not question was that the students are going to have a card and they're going to clock in, so to speak. They're going to scan their card to say, I'm on the bus. And then they're going to scan their card to say, I'm off the bus. And so that all gets recorded. Now, the buses already have video on them, although it's not live, but they have video. So I'm sitting here with all these questions running through my head, and the board asked nothing. They said, this is a great idea. This will be wonderful because parents will know where their kids are. And I'm going, wait a minute. What about if somebody hacks into this system? What about if the tablet is left somewhere and can be opened up somehow? The student information is on there. Because the question was, they did ask this one question, what if they lose the card? Or what if what if they forgot their card? How do they check in? And they said, oh, we're going to have their photo on the tablet, and all they have to do is press it. And that's when my alarm bells went off. I would not want my child's photo on a tablet that's on screen. Now, I did talk with Aaron, who does the technology, and he said that it's all encrypted, everything. I'm like, okay. And other school districts are using it. That may be true, but the board did not ask the questions that were in my head.
Well, and we just had the pedophile get fired from Hall County Schools too a couple of years ago. I mean, that's always a concern for me. Yeah. So I asked another question. How are the little ones, the kindergarten, first graders, going to keep up with this card? You know how some kids are. I mean, I have one kid that would never have found that card. We're going to zip tie it to their book bag. Okay. That's what they do in another school district. I think he said Dawson, but I'm not positive that was the one. So anyway, I had a lot of questions about it, but the board didn't ask these questions, and I asked them at the next public comment. And Aaron came up to me afterwards, and I said, we need to ask the bus drivers how this is going, because you can't. It's hands free. You cannot touch something. If they're on the road and not parked in a parking space somewhere, they're not supposed to touch a tablet, period.
what if the kid has trouble? Are they going to pull over into a parking lot and park and then help them? Or are they going to do it right there on the road? So there are issues. I think there are some issues that haven't been addressed. This is already in the budget for next year, and they're going to vote on it in July. So, I mean, I'm just saying I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying they're not asking questions.
We need more information.
That's what I would be doing if I were on the board. I'd be asking these questions. I have all kinds of questions about it. How much are they? How much training does it take? Do the bus drivers really like it? Do they hate it? Is it a pain? Do they, what? I have no idea. There are all kinds of questions that aren't being asked. And
Right.
so that's what I use my public comments for when I'm there. And but I
Good questions. And I think that's why a lot of the board members respect you, and they kind of got you as like an insider at some of the meetings, some way they talk to you, not an insider, but you're a trusted person.
Right.
You're not up there attacking them every time like most people.
That's right.
The way you pick and choose what you talk about is a lot better than the one dude that comes and talks about solar energy every week. I mean, it just gets redundant after a while.
Yeah. I don't speak at every meeting. I don't.
Right.
There are certain things I ask about, and when you have public comments, you have to understand they are not supposed to respond to you during a public comment, because a board member is a member of a board. They cannot individually respond to you. We often have the superintendent respond to us, but at that point you can't respond back, or you can't ask more questions. So it's kind of left, and you'll see that in the video that I post.
Right.
But I would ask more questions. I would want to get more into the budget. I would want to understand a little bit more. I'd want to understand more about the general obligation bond that they got on the ballot and was approved back in 2019, 2020. That's a 40-year payoff. That, when you look at if you're in Hall County taxes, when you look at it, you'll see the school, and then you'll see school bond. That's separate. That 1.0 is there. And so one of the things that I've noticed is, when they were asking about eSplost, which is on the ballot for this upcoming time, whether you're for or against it, here's an interesting fact about eSplost. The school district currently takes 40% of their eSplost to put into this bond, to pay this bond. And the one millage rate for the bond on your tax form is paying for the bond. And they have at so many points in time, they have to pay off parts of the bond as they're going. And I think they have 250 million something approved, and they've spent, I want to say 180 million. I know I'm wrong on the number, but it's somewhere in that area that they've spent with the new constructions over the last few years. So this is going to be being paid off for 20 years. Okay, so then you're looking at it going, what's going to happen if 40% of what they're using for eSplost is going toward paying it off, and the one on the millage rate's paying it? Then what if eSplost does not pass? Let's just do that scenario. If eSplost does not pass, they have the ability to increase that millage rate on that school bond to whatever they want it to be. They're not restricted.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
So it just, that's what the superintendent is currently saying. So,
well, and that explains why Schofield's, that's why Schofield in these interviews and the paper stuff, you can basically feel him about to have a stroke when he talks about these homestead exemptions and eSplost not passing, because the school board's going to be in a bind if for some reason it gets turned down like the last SPLOST did for the regular budget.
For the transport. So when you're looking at it, you have to kind of take into consideration that that's the threat. We know that. We've seen it. We've read it. But nobody is going into the budget and saying, where can we cut it?
No,
It just
nobody.
isn't happening. Now, I will have to say there was one presentation for budget where they were reducing their budget by 2 million because of something, but then it'll go back in the next year or something. There was some back and forth on something, but it's not looking at the details. It's not looking at that rental of 79,000, which is pennies compared to a $374 million budget. But, you know, when you have a budget that large, what are you really, you know, paying for? You can't, it's very difficult to look at that budget and understand it. They only put the groupings out on the website. You can't get into the details because I'm sure it's millions of lines long. But that's one thing I would hope to do, is to be able to really dig into the budget and go, where can we save money? What is it that we are holding on to that we don't need? What is it that we can use of our own instead of buying something new or renting something new or whatever? So, you know, there are lots of places to look. It's just as the public, we can't see it easily. And that's the problem. I think we should be able to see it easily. That goes for the Hall County as a whole, the government as a whole. You can't see it easily. You have no idea what people are making and what they are spending and things like that. So that's another.
We know just from basic digging that they listed subcontractors down as substitute teachers. I mean, it's
okay. So
sections, because I mean that's all it could be, because every one of those people listed under substitutes,
okay,
were contractors.
Okay, so I talked with I believe it was Jonathan. He's the financial guy there, about that, because I was asking him specifically about students who are working for the Hall County School District under work-based learning and why they're listed as a substitute teacher. I asked him specifically because where we're seeing that is in Open Georgia, open.georgia.gov. That's where you can look up salaries and things like that. And it's about a 2-year delay, I think. So according to Jonathan, even though in their own system, in Hall County School District's own financial system, the student is listed as work-based learning or the contractor is listed as a contractor, in order to report it to the Georgia, Open Georgia, or to the governor's office, however they report it, there were smaller choices for what this person is.
Right.
And so they can only choose a couple of different things, and that's why they end up choosing substitute teacher. So they're not technically a substitute teacher. It's showing that way on opengeorgia.gov. It is not showing that way on the Hall County School District list. Okay. However, I don't have my hands on the Hall County School District list. Right. So I can tell what's going on, if that makes sense.
Right. Because I know we put in ORRs and all they would come back and say is, these people have never been substitute teachers in our school district. And
that's correct. They have not. But they are listed a different way on the internal documents than the way it's reported. And it's not, I don't think it's their fault at all. I think it's the constraints of the Georgia entity that's causing us to question why it's that way.
Right.
Okay.
And I understand you got a $375 million budget. I mean, you can't line item everything, but you can be a lot more transparent than you are. Case in point, the farm, which we don't want to get into that, but when we were trying to get information from it, they told us that they had 4 different bank accounts for the farm. I mean, how efficient can you really be and keep up with your money if you're pulling money from here and here and here? I mean, you know, it should be more categorized and more, you know, organized is what, you know.
I think the farm falls under the CTAE program, which is housed at the LCCA.
Right.
I can't remember the acronym, but I think it's housed under that. But I'm not sure how they're doing their budgets on it either. So yeah, that's another interesting area. Yeah, but I mean, you know, you start where you can, and ideally the board can change to function more like a board in overseeing things. I don't know what the board members get to look at for budgets.
Right.
I mean, hopefully they get more than I get, because what I get, it's hard to tell what's going on. That's what they publish on the website. It's on the Hall County School District website. It's hallco.org. Yeah. Hallco.org is theirs. And if you want to know more about the eSplost, it's eSplost.hallco.org. So they have a separate one for the eSplost if you want to know more about that one. But I would like to see more transparency in the budget itself and understand how things are done. I realize it's a huge amount of money, but they're paying huge amounts for different things. And so it's like, let's break it down a little bit more and see if there is a place that we can save money so that we don't have to increase millage rates.
Well, right. And I know, and a lot of it is, in my opinion, and I've done some research on it, 60% nationwide on average, any money given to the school district, 60% of it on average goes to administration. And only 40% goes to teachers and counselors and parapros and where it really needs to be. I mean, you look at the Hall County government building on Green Street, you probably got $2 million in salaries and bonuses sitting in that one building. And you got teachers having to buy school supplies.
Right.
Is there a way to attack that? Not just you as a person, but one can't do it, but how to kind of reverse that, even like 40-60 to the administrator. Why should the administrators get the money? Like Schofield's over $500,000 counting as benefits and a salary. So how
Chris,
do we?
Still there?
Yeah, but I mean, so Schofield's over $500,000 salary and benefits. How do we kind of, not with him, we can't do nothing about him until he retires or a new contract comes up. But overall, how do we get more of that money to the teachers where it needs to go?
Right. A couple of things. One is that when people do retire, let them retire and not have them come back.
Right.
Part-time. There's a lot of that. And allow your own people to move up into those positions instead of waiting for that person to come back after 6 months or whatever. I get it, but it's tempting to do because you get full retirement and you get paid in addition. But I think that's not a great program unless you don't have someone that can do that job. But I believe you have people who can do those jobs.
Yeah, that's why you have so many assistant superintendents and stuff, so they can move up to those.
Right. So that would be a good study to do, to look at, like, from 2016 to 2026, what's happening, what's the percentage of the administrative cost, and look at how the students are performing as well. That kind of, overlay. It's not a causal thing. It's just a look at this, look at what's happening. That's one thing that could be done. I think, too, if we can get help from the state to reduce the medical benefit amounts.
Well, they need more than one option for the county to
one option, and I think it's in the area of $24,000 per person full time, which is outrageous. I mean, $24,000 in health stuff per year. That's just unbelievable. So that's another thing, but that's coming from a state thing, I believe. That needs to be worked on. Hopefully a new state school superintendent might be able to help with that, and maybe a new governor as well. That's the kind of thing that needs to come top down. But yeah,
Susan, if you get elected, I'd like for you to look into the electric bills of all the Hall County schools.
Bills? Okay.
That's just my personal opinion. When I drive by at night and I see parking lot lights on for no reason at some of these schools, outside of security concerns, if there's another way to potentially shut off, I don't know if she can still even hear me at this point right now.
She'll be right back.
Yeah. I think got stuck. But yeah, like we were talking about last time, or I think last week, with who do we have last week?
Mark.
Mark, yeah.
Well, here she's back.
No, you're good. You're good. I didn't want to finish my thoughts until you came back. But essentially, just driving around and seeing some of the school systems, and I see this with the Gainesville City schools all the time, especially the high school. All the lights are on. And I get it. Maybe it is because of security reasons and whatever else, but there's got to be a better way instead of leaving on, these 150 watt, 200 watt, 500 watt bulbs outdoors 24/7, essentially.
Right.
You multiply that by however many schools we have in the system, that's got to be a big number. I see my house electric bill, and that's just, we don't run a lot, and it's, in the couple $100 range. So I could only imagine what it is with the school systems.
Right. Yeah. I haven't looked at that, but that's another thing about the budgets. Can you dig down and find that in the budget? I don't know. I haven't tried. The other thing is the budget is typically given to us in a paper version. I know online that you can pull it up, but it's not searchable. It's not. You need it in a format like an Excel spreadsheet or something where you can actually search for things just to make it accessible. That's just, to me, a thing that needs to be done.
I think that's by design. I feel like
there.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm saying the software is there. They're just not utilizing it. They pay for it. Why not use it?
I feel like a lot of this is just by design, so you don't have the public coming up to question things and each individual item and taking up the board's time or the superintendent's time questioning things.
As an elected official,
that's your job.
You should be able to sit there and ask them all the questions you want.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you in that instance, but again, I feel like it's all by design.
Yeah,
you don't want it to be transparent enough to where people can come question you about every little nickel and dime, potentially.
Right.
You're right.
Well, and a lot of it is, and I get some of it. If you allot, say, $1 million to repairing bathrooms and none of the bathrooms need to be fixed, you can't allot that money to anything else. It's got to be used for that reason. And I understand you've got to have a catch-all general fund to where you can move money where you need it. But it seems like the whole budget for Hall County is just a big general fund, and they just pull what they need.
It's definitely something that needs to be easier to research, I think. It is difficult. It's when I print them out, I've got one somewhere, but when I print them out, they're on these giant pieces of paper, and it's so tiny you can barely read it. It's pages and pages and pages of data, but it needs to be electronic. It needs to be searchable.
Right.
There's no way about it.
And you had talked about right before we start wrapping up, because I know you got to go and we got another one in a few minutes. You had talked about improving the reading scores and the math scores and all that. And I'd read a study about a year ago to where Sweden and a couple of the Nordic countries that eliminated all electronics in their school systems and went back to actual books and teaching, and their test scores skyrocketed.
Exactly. So there are cases around the world and around the country where that's true. You've got a technology budget, and I get it for high school, because when you get to college, you've got to be able to do it. But kids are smart. They know this stuff already. They can learn it when they get to high school, all the little intricacies of it. You don't have to start them on it in K through 8, maybe K through 5. But I don't like that they have those tablets in the elementary schools. I realize it's fun. I get it, but still, that's the time for tactile learning. That's the time for having a book. That's the time for learning how to just read and understand and give feedback. It's not the time to learn the tricks of the trade, the AI support, this and that and the other. because our kids are not coming out smarter than us. They're coming out being able to use electronics and those whatever things that they may be able to do, like AI and search engines and things. They know how to use that. Yeah, they can beat me on that any day of the week. But I can pick up any book and read it and retain it. And they're not going to do that. They're going to look up the one thing they want to know, but they're going to miss all the extra stuff that goes with it that allows you to just be a well-rounded, educated person. I do not like tablets in this younger grades at all. I don't think they should have it. I think we should go back to books. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Is it feasible? Don't know yet. Don't know where the budget is. You know, how much you paying for technology. They have Chromebooks for every child. They have 27,000 students, you know, or more. I mean, this is an enormous investment. And, you know, they're very good about making sure things last a long time. They are excellent at that. I'll give them kudos for that for sure.
Right.
They are so good at that. And even when they change, for example, the other day, when they change the HVAC units and they take out the coolant that's no longer being produced, they save it. I mean, they do these things. They are really good about preserving things. But when you get back to your students, you've got to teach them. You've got to have them have pencil and paper. They need to be able to understand it. They don't need a calculator. They need to learn the times tables. They need to write. They need to write in cursive.
Right.
They need to read in cursive. I have one child that does not read in cursive because they took it out of the system. Now, you can blame that on the general, what was it called? Common Core. That was put in 2015. That was a state mandate. And that's one reason I hope that we get a new superintendent. He's now claiming we got rid of it, but it took him 10 years where he could have just said, no, we're not doing that anymore, because the scores went down immediately.
Yeah, you can go above and beyond them. Yeah, you can go above and beyond the minimum. I mean, you know.
Right. So, you know, if you're not increasing, what you should do is look at every school that you've got and say, which class is the best reading class? Which is the best math class? Teacher, what are you doing? What's different? Why are your students better? And find out what they're doing and apply it. And I've told the board that in the past. You have teachers that are good at this. Do what they are doing. You have teachers who've been there 30 years and are still there, who are teaching it the way they were taught 30 years ago. That needs to come out, and that needs to be reversed, because giving them a tablet is not working. I just think it's a terrible waste of time. I mean, if a homeschool student can learn everything they need to do to everything in a few hours a day and get it all by the age of 16, the school system's not applying the right principles. Why not look at a homeschool curriculum and see what's going on? They're doing much better. Those students are so bright, and they are doing it the right way. So that's another thing, you know, look at where it's best, where things are doing, you're providing the best information and the best output, and apply it. Try it. Do one class, see what happens.
And I think that's one reason the tablets and everything, you have no accountability, and that's why they have to have these policies. Everybody gets a 50, whether they do the work or not.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I don't like the makeup policies that teachers are using. I think that actually hurts the students when they go to college, because they won't get that in college. I've seen it myself. If they don't turn something in, then they could get one chance to make it up within a week or something like that and get a reduced grade and be done. And if they don't, then it's a 0. And if they don't have the passing grade, then keep them back.
Right.
That's not a crime. They're not doing the work. You shouldn't pass them. It brings in that entitlement thing that I started seeing in the mid-90s with my own students. They were entitled. They said, well, I'm here. Why can't I have an A? Well, you're not doing the work. And I saw it myself for years. And I finally just said, I can't teach anymore. I just can't, because the entitlement was outrageous. And that was 20, plus years ago.
And it wasn't like that when I graduated in 90, and it's so funny how quick it went down.
It was fast.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a 3-4 year period where it just went boom.
Right. And then you've got the Hope Scholarship combined in there. I need the Hope Scholarship so I can go to college, so they inflate the grades. Now, I'm not saying all teachers do that. I'm just saying that's the general perception from the public, is that the grades get inflated so the students can get the Hope Scholarship. But I can tell you that the Hope Scholarship, after they get in college for 1 year, they start losing it in a big way. It used to be around 25%. I think it's increased since then because they're not coming in ready. They're not coming in ready. And we need to make sure our Hall County students are ready. We need to be the best school in the
and I don't understand, just one last thing, why they don't look at Beaufort and Jefferson, who has 2 of the top 10 school systems in the state. Why don't they try to learn what they're doing and kind of replicate it? Not really replicate it, but just kind of, what they're doing works. Why don't we do some of this?
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of money poured into both of those systems. I mean, you get a lot of buildings. And so there's your thing. We need more money or we can't do that. See?
But it's not the money, it's where the money's spent.
Yeah. So you can see how the argument will go.
Oh, yeah, no, I get it. And that's where we're at now with a $375 million budget. And not one time is our superintendent in any of these interviews said, we may have to cut spending. He just said, we're still going to have to spend the money on these students.
Yep.
And that's,
and they will tell you that per student, money spent per student is lower than anywhere in the area. Why? That's a good question. Why? Why are we lower when we have a budget that large?
And we don't get any less money than any other system in the, you get so much per student. It's just where you put that money.
Yeah. But so anyway, that's sort of, so I know you got to run. So I'll just say, hey, if you want more information about me, susanforhall.com, FOR, not the 4, susanforhall.com. And then I've got an email that comes directly to me. You can get to it on that site, or you can do susanforhall at gmail.com. And then you've got a Facebook page, Susan for Hall. So they're all the same. I'm the only one who reads those emails. So if you have any information or any questions or anything you want me to just look into, I'll be happy to do it. There's a telephone number on my website as well that you can send me a text message, contact me that way too. So, I'm here to serve, really. That's really it. And I'm sitting here going, I want to know where my money is going. And I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Vera, you got anything before we get off here?
No, I'd like to know where my money's going to.
Okay.
And Susan, I'm telling you, we're pulling for you. We hope you get on, because nothing against Miss Baker. She's got good ideas, but you showed you put in the work and the effort for the last 2 years, and and I think you'd be a big asset to the Board of Education, and hopefully get more board members to speaking up and asking questions and moving this thing in the right direction.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and we will see y'all on the next podcast 19. We're going to have our district attorney candidate, Shiv, on, and should be a good one. Thanks for your time, Susan, and
Sure
we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Vera. That go all right?